Welcome everyone to Leap to Learn, the Edvantage way. I'm Hazem.
And I'm Dana, and we're excited to have you here for our first episode.
Absolutely. Before we dive in, we'd just like to introduce ourselves. We're the general managers at Edvantage.
That's correct. And we have extensive experience over the past 14 years in teaching, material development, counseling, you name it.
That's right. So a little bit about myself. I have taught programs such as General English, the IELTS, TOEFL, UCAT, GMAT, SATs, some corporate courses, and even English for specific purposes.
Yeah, and just to add on to that as well, I've also taught in foundation programs for universities. My main focus is with the IELTS and English language for adults, as well as different industries in the corporate field as well.
Our mission with this podcast is to introduce educations globally.
That's correct. And to allow students, parents as well, to understand what opportunities are out there for, whether it's for them or for their kids, in the future, to help guide them in that way.
In addition to the opportunities, it's also to explain cultural differences, what programs are unique or special to certain people as well.
Definitely. I mean, I believe that cultural differences is very, very important for people to be aware of before they go and put themselves in a different country or different culture for 3, 4, 5, maybe even more years at a time.
And in addition to all of that, you need to understand also that international education is quite important, because some people say, why should I go abroad when I can study locally?
No, that's very true, very true. But the opportunities out there are endless, I believe. And the type of education as well is very, very important to look at and to understand when thinking about studying abroad.
Definitely. I agree 100% with that. And that kind of takes us to our next point here. What is our approach at Edvantage for students or even parents, as you mentioned?
Yeah, well, over the years, you and I we've had a lot of experience dealing with students from different backgrounds, whether it's different nationalities or different types of interests that they have. And one of the important things that we do in our consultations is to really personalize the advice that we give to students, because speaking to one student is never going to be the same than speaking to a whole bunch of students. We've had students before who may be thinking about going for one major, but then not realizing that major is not for them in particular.
In addition to just the major, maybe even the country. Some people have this thought of, I want to go to a specific country, for the sake of an example, to the United States. And this may come from the influence of TV or media.
Of course.
Because they have this image. Some others may say, no, I don't want to go to the States just because of how news perceives certain things that happen there, especially with crimes that could go on in certain cities.
That's true. But I believe, there are crimes everywhere in the world. But this is the idea that some students have when it comes to safety. And safety is very, very important, especially from a parent's perspective.
Definitely.
Sending their young sons and daughters abroad. Number one is safety. Number two is, of course, the university or the major that they're going to study. And I think, in our consultations, it's very important that we try to understand the student. We understand their perspective, and we try to understand their personalities as well, which is why then we have this very personalized consultation for them.
And not just that, we also kind of look at, are they suitable for a major? The sad part is sometimes there's a lack of awareness of what a major entails.
100%.
Or what a career prospect after that major may be.
Yeah.
And we just need to clarify what these are for students, and also show them and guide them towards what their future careers might look like.
Definitely.
And in addition to all of that, I would say the best thing, or one of the things we do, is we always advise students with different options. So we take the research off the students' back, we do it for them, and then we help them with the entire process all the way to their accommodation needs.
Yeah, definitely. I think I think for us as well, being in the educational field, it's always been sort of a journey with each individual student. You know, we take the student from step one or from point A, and guide them through the entire process, because every student has strengths and weaknesses. You know, there are some students that would do very well on their personal statement. However, academically, they're not the greatest, or they haven't received the scores that they require for a certain major. And I think this is where our experience in the educational field has really built us up to the point where we can sit down and take it sort of case by case.
Okay.
You know, where a student would come in and say, you know, I've got this plan, I've got this idea, this is what I want to do. And we identify where their weaknesses are, their strengths, their personalities, and what their end goal is. Definitely. As well. Because, you know, going into education is a long lifetime journey.
Definitely.
It doesn't stop once you're done with your high school or with your bachelor's or with your master's. It's continuous. And bringing that back into cultural awareness as well is the importance of them being aware of where they're going and what to expect.
And let's be honest, you and I, we've said we've been in this field for 14 years.
Yeah.
And to this day, we still educate ourselves. And we've graduated God knows how many years ago.
Long time.
But it didn't stop for us. Education is something that carries on with life.
Definitely. Yeah. And it's something important as well, because you can look at education from 2 points of view. There's the type where education is something that you have to do in life. You know, you need to get a certificate, you need to get a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, and it's sort of a duty. You know, that
I understand your point of view, but at the same time, saying have or need to kind of makes it seem like someone is forced into it. Education is something you want to do. It's something. Definitely. It's something within you that needs to be brought out.
Yeah, and I think it's embedded in everybody, because you know we go through that process from KG all the way up to, you know, graduating year 12 or year 13. But how you experience it, I think, really makes a difference to what you plan on doing with it. You know, you can go into sit into a class, sit an exam, pass everything, but not really experience it, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Or you can really dive in deep and say, okay, what can I do to make this learning experience enjoyable and benefit me in the future? You know, if you're going in just to class to read a book, answer some questions, do a presentation, submit your assignments on time, then what are you really learning from the experience itself?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Of course, you kind of need to take the entire experience together, not, as you said, just go for specific things to receive a document that says you graduated with a certain major or degree.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, there's other things you can pick up while you're studying. There's things like time management, you know, team management as well, or being part of a team, so a team player, which I think is very important regardless of the field. You know, just if we kind of step back a little bit and kind of go through our educational experience, where I have a background in business and your background is in engineering.
Yes.
Two completely different fields. And I would say engineering is more maybe a hands-on.
Yes, engineering is definitely a more hands-on major, because in addition to theoretical things you learn, there is a lot of hands-on things, such as, for example, I did mechanical engineering. So one of the very first things I learned is how to weld.
Okay.
You know, so it's a basic skill in life for people who like working with their hands.
Yeah.
How to maybe do electrical wiring. It's part of engineering. So engineering, medicine, the scientific subjects generally are very hands-on.
Yeah.
Whereas more, I would say, management-like subjects, such as business, marketing, accounting, and so on, they tend to be theoretical to an extent.
Yeah. Definitely. But I mean, still with that experience, you can make it either more theoretical or more hands-on through the tools that you have. For me, while I was studying business management, yes, it was a lot of theory that I had to learn. And, I did a bit of accounting and I did a bit of statistics as well. But then I also went into marketing and I went into organizational behavior. So there was a lot of different subjects that were covered. But also the way that I looked at it, because I prefer to learn sort of more hands-on and putting it into real-life experiences. When we were doing team projects, I would look and see how different members of the team were organizing themselves and how they were behaving and how they were reacting and what skills they were better at than other members. So then, we could delegate the tasks accordingly, So even with a business management major, you can turn it into something that's more enjoyable and a wider perspective.
Of course.
Than
of course.
what is just taught in the books. If you put it that way.
Well, because we went to the same university, I remember at one point in your education, even though you did business management, you did do practical things. You had to start up a business.
Oh, that's correct. Yes. Yeah.
You had to start up a business where I don't know. I'm trying to remember. I think you were selling juice.
I think so. I don't remember what the project was exactly. But I know that we had to set up a stall, but we went as deep as, assigning roles to each team member.
Of course.
So we had to have a manager and we had to have an accountant and we had to have somebody that was dealing with the logistics and, kind of building up that team, the team roles and the team synergy there to be able to come up with this plan. And then we had to execute it. So we actually had to set up a stand and get all the materials as well. So we had to do all the calculations of, what are we going to buy? What are things going to cost? How can we reduce cost as well? And then we had to put it into action.
Yep.
And we invited the rest of the university students and the staff members. And, we had a theme for it. If I'm not mistaken, it was like a Hawaiian.
Yes.
It was a Hawaiian theme.
Yes, it was.
So we were all dressed up in like Hawaiian outfits and stuff. And, to that extent as well of how are we going to decorate our booths and how are we going to decorate our menus and how we were going to decorate the cups that we were, providing the juice into to everybody. So overall, it was a very extensive experience, but it was very enjoyable because at the same time, I was able to learn everything from team management right the way up to customer service.
Of course.
Because there were other stalls happening. I don't know if you remember, but there were different tables and stalls that were going on.
Yes. Yeah, I remember the university had a huge event circled around this for, I think it was just your year group or your class that was.
Yeah, I think it was just all the management students at the time, but we all had different things. There was something going on about sports and if you could lift a certain amount of weights and, there was little competitions going on.
I think so.
Yeah, so it was interesting to see how, everybody's mindset was completely different, but how we kind of tied it all in together to have even an event as well. And I believe that there was another team that was organizing the entire event as a whole.
Of course.
So different things like that was a lot of experience. And I remember some of the students, in my group took the experience just as this is an assignment that we have to do. I'm going to do my part. I'm going to finish what I need to do and I'm going to get my grade. And that was it. Whereas myself, and I know a couple of classmates of mine, we thought of it from a different perspective of, how are we really going to experience this? How are we going to live this and really go through step by step and really understand how it all ties in together?
Well, that being said, in engineering, there is that similarity. Like I remember my graduation project, we all had to build something from scratch and we had to assign, I wouldn't say roles, but everyone had to work on a production part.
Okay.
And then it's kind of like an assembly line. So each one was working on something different. And then suddenly it would all come together as one final product for all of us at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's engineering and I was business, but the concept's still the same.
Yes.
There are steps that you go through.
In your case, you said that if it's a business, you kind of ran a business on a very miniature scale, but you had management, you had accounting, you had HR, you had
Definitely.
like logistics, marketing, whereas we worked more like a production line.
Yeah.
And so it kind of translates of what could happen in the real world when you're actually doing it at
And
just a smaller scale.
yeah, yeah. Of course, out in the real world, it's obviously a much, much larger scale, and you may not be involved with everything. But I think that experience allowed us to test and try
Yeah.
different parts. And for engineering, as you said, the production line, it's very important, because if you haven't done your task, the one after you is waiting for your job to be done. So again, this is where communication comes in.
Yes.
And team management and time management as well, because if you've got a certain deadline, you've got to meet that deadline before the next person can take over,
Of course.
on their part. And how important do you think that is so nowadays, or how relevant do you think that is nowadays in the educational sector?
Like in terms of doing these practical things,
Yeah.
that's extremely relevant.
Yeah.
Extremely relevant. Like, just like I'm a huge car enthusiast.
Mm-hmm.
So based on that, I would say, like, look at how a car is produced from a concept all the way to a working vehicle.
Yeah.
It starts off with, you need to build the chassis, you need to build the bodywork, you need to build the engine, and there's a team for each part of this.
Yeah.
And then this all gets assembled into what we use today as cars.
Yeah.
So like, some people would say, oh, this car is really nice, but the amount of work that goes into for you to buy something within an hour of your day, it takes years maybe just to get that out into the market.
Yeah.
And then this is where business comes in, because yes, the engineers have designed this, they have made it. Now, how do they get this to the customer?
Yeah.
This is the business point of view.
Yeah.
Where you have people hiring salespeople, which means you can either be doing marketing, HR, who hires those people, accounting for the numbers that are coming in and out.
Of course, yeah.
So management, like all of everything that we study today somehow just all works together.
Yeah.
Like, even with medicine, yes, you're a doctor, but behind the scenes, there's the hospital management.
Yeah.
They are the medical engineers that design the tools doctors use.
Yeah.
So everyone in the world needs to work in harmony, because they all complete each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, a doctor is only as good as his knowledge and his physical prowess.
Yeah.
But without the tools given, like, how can a doctor diagnose if there are no x-ray machines?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But who designed that x-ray machine?
Yeah.
An engineer. Now, the engineer who designed it. Now, who manages all of this? Someone who most likely studied business, or in a combination with a medical degree.
Yeah.
So it's all like everyone works together.
Yeah. Which I think is also, as you just mentioned there, actually is a very important point, because, a lot of students come to us and they say, oh, I don't want to study this because I don't want to work in this place. So what they do is often connect the major to the workplace in the end, and say, for example, if I'm going to study business, that means I'm going to be stuck in an office, and I don't like to sit in one place for 8 hours, for example. But the idea is, because there are so many different job titles and opportunities, you need to really understand the options that are available for you out there. Going into business doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be sat behind a desk 8 hours a day, looking at a computer.
You can, like, a sub major or a sub subject of marketing is event management.
Yep.
Event management, for example, you are rarely on a desk.
Yeah.
You are not working behind a computer for your entire workday.
Yeah.
You have to visit locations. You're working in tandem with maybe graphic designers or a design team who designs the things you need for the event.
Yeah.
And then you have those who construct what you need for the event.
Yeah.
So there is a lot that goes into it. And yeah, maybe, and I may be wrong with this. A lot of people, I would say, the only subject that you are expected to sit 8 hours behind the table with or behind the desk with is accounting, because
Yeah.
you are sifting through numbers
Yeah.
nonstop, and it is one that's just pure paperwork and just numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you hate numbers, I would highly, discourage you from
From
going
going.
to accounting or finance.
Yeah, which is, see, this is where I think, where I enjoy consulting, because students are very unaware of what to expect in the end. And to them, it's just a continuation of, studying, but kind of focus on a certain subject area.
Mm-hmm.
But to understand what you could do later on is amazing, because I think you can agree on this with me, is back in the day when we were in high school, we didn't really have that exposure or that guidance as to what we could do in the future and what kind of fields we could go to. Maybe we had sort of a brief idea on certain things, but we didn't have the in-depth knowledge and kind of information given to us as to what you could. It was either you were going to go into business, or you're going to go into engineering, or you're going to go into medicine, and that was it. But okay, what does business include, or what kind of industries are in the engineering field? You've got mechanical, you've got oil and gas, you've got electrical, and they're all different.
True. No, like there are so many different things you can go into, but that I think that would be a story for another podcast.
Probably, yeah, because we can go on a lot with that.
Because we of course in the future we will have episodes which focus on certain subjects or certain majors, where we go into much deeper detail with hopefully more guests coming on to explain those subjects in their specialty.
Yeah.
But I think I hope that this episode is one that you enjoyed.
I think it's the beginning of a lot of exciting things to come as we go in depth, into certain things that you said, with guest speakers and in certain subjects in the near future. But yeah, I mean, I think we've got a lot to talk about, and hopefully, if we are able to break it down and kind of give free consultations on air to students that are watching, and parents that are watching as well. And our doors are always open to welcome people in, and hopefully we'll be able to guide more and more students in the future as well, to better places and better opportunities that they are looking for.
Of course. Just in closing, I'd like to thank our audience for joining us today.
Yeah.
I would also like to tell you to please subscribe to our podcast, subscribe to our social medias to stay up to date with us. And we hope you all have an amazing day, evening, morning,
weekend, month, holiday, if you're on summer holidays as well.
So wherever you are, whatever time of the day it is, please take care of yourself and enjoy yourself.
Yep, excellent. And hopefully we'll see you in the next one.